Ready? Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, adults, young people. Closer. There we go. Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala thumma amma ba'd. So, firstly, thank you to Falah for inviting me out. This is my second time I'm visiting you guys. May Allah protect you, bless your community, and attract everything that's good and repel everything that's bad. Ameen ya Rab. My talk, inshallah, tonight, what was it? Parenting insight from the lives of Yaqub and Shuaib. May Allah be pleased with both of them. Ameen. So, I'd like to discuss, I'll split the talk in two. So the first half will speak about Yaqub alayhi salatu salam, and then the second half, Shuaib. And I'd like to apologize beforehand. I haven't given, they said, an hour lecture. So I haven't done an hour lecture in a long time. So if I end short, forgive me, inshallah, right? And after 30 minutes, people fall asleep. I gave a lecture this weekend at a cafe. It was 45 minutes long. And people were like, this, looking up the coffee. So I think an hour is a little bit too much. But, I'll try my best, inshallah. Okay, so who's a parent? Raise their hand. Who's a parent? Raise your hand. Okay, put your hands down. Who's not a parent? Okay, parents, pay attention for your kids. People that aren't parents, pay attention for when you have kids, inshallah. So parenting, right? A lot of people, when they hear, okay, so-and-so is coming in and speaking about parenting, right? Sometimes people link education with parenting. So what I mean by that is sometimes people will believe that if I'm well educated, it automatically makes me a good parent. If I have a PhD, it automatically makes me a good Muslim, a good son, a good child, a good friend, a good neighbor. Education is supposed to enhance one's character. It's supposed to. The primary function of education, especially Islamic education, it is supposed to enhance one's abilities, but that's not always the case, right? We ask Allah for tawfiq. So coming to Yaqub alayhi salatu salam, who is that? That is the father of Joseph, peace and blessings be upon him. And one of his nicknames is actually Israel. And it's important to note that it's not Israel, by the way, because they actually named it Israel to link it to the Bible. But this is one of Jacob's names in the Quran and even in the Bible. So when we speak about Yaqub alayhi salatu salam and his parenting techniques, we go to Surah Yusuf, okay? A lot of his statements are recorded in this chapter. And, the scholars say that a lot of the times when Allah speaks about parenting, parenthood, fatherhood, Yaqub alayhi salatu salam, majority of the time, he's mentioned, right? Surah Yusuf is obviously dedicated to the life of Yusuf alayhi salatu salam and his father, Yaqub alayhi salatu salam. And the first thing to note is the Bible, when it speaks about Jacob, the story of Jacob and Joseph is 4 times longer in the Bible than the Quran. And that's Allah's indirect way of telling us there's a lot of details. So in the Quran and in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, we don't have a lot of information. There's a lot of missing information. Right? Can anyone give me some of that missing information? What Allah doesn't tell us about Jacob. For example, he had 2 wives. We don't know their names. We don't know the names of the brothers except Benjamin. And even Quran doesn't tell us that. We don't know the name of the Aziz. We don't know the name of the wife. The name of the prisoners who shared the cell with him. So we don't know. There's a lot of missing information. And to be frank, it's not important. Because if it was important, Allah would have included it in the Quran. So Allah is only relaying information that is directly linked to guidance, right? So He's only concerned with the lessons that will essentially guide you and I to the straight path, right? لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبَرَةٌ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ, right? The reason why we study the stories of the prophets and the messengers is so that we can, inshallah, be guided. There's lessons in them, right? So we ask Allah for tawfiq. Amin ya Rab. Okay, so the surah begins off by saying, نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ أَحْسَنَ الْقَصَصِ, right? So the story that Allah is about to tell us, it's actually one of the best stories, or the best story, right? So it's something unique. So Allah wants you and I to pay attention. And Yusuf alayhi salatu salam begins the dialogue with his father. He says, Ya abati. Okay? How do you say the word father in Arabic? Ab. How do you say my father? Abi. Right? So for those that are kind of aware of the Arabic language, there's a ta there. Abi means my father. The ta is called the ta of mahabba, the ta of love. So in English, I could translate that to, Father, I really love you. You're the greatest dad in the world. So he's getting his attention. Ya abati, inni. Inna means there's no doubt. Verily, so what he's about to say, there's no doubt in it. رَأَيْتُ أَحَدَ عَشَرَ كَوْكَبًا وَالشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ رَأَيْتُهُمْ لِي سَاجِدِينَ. So there's no doubt, and what he's about to say might be difficult to believe, right? And we're going to learn that inshallah soon. So I had a dream, my beloved father, and I saw 11 stars, the sun and the moon, making prostration to me. So Yusuf alayhi salam, as a child, sees this dream and he tells his dad. So I want to pause here, right? He saw a dream. He wakes up and he goes to who? His father. The first thing or the first person this child goes to when he wants to talk to someone, he needs to talk to someone. Right? You know when you have when you hear something in the masjid or something that's bothering you or something that's on your mind, you have to express it. You have to verbalize it. You have to communicate it with someone else. It helps you, right? It's a source of relief and counseling. So he's like, I got to find someone. And the first person that he goes to is his father, Yaqub alayhi salam. Now question, when our kids, when they have something really important to talk about, or they just need a shoulder to cry on, who are the first people they go to? No. Good answer, but no. Most of the time, they're friends, they're buddies, they're pals, right? 95% of kids, when they have a secret, or when they had a dream, or whatever it may be, and they need to talk to someone, usually, the majority of the times, it's not the parents. And in the 5% where it is the parents, you saw a dream, or something happened in school, or you got into a fight with your friend, and let's say they muster up the courage to go to their parents. What's the response? Majority of the time, not all the time, but majority of the time, goes to the father. I'm busy. He's watching a game. Go to the mother. Mother's talking to a family member overseas. Go to bed. Right? So we shut down our kids. Kids, like you said, brother, naturally, they incline to their mothers more than their fathers. And we're learning already such a profound lesson in the story of Yaqub alayhi salam and his son, that the first person that this prophet went to wasn't his mother. He has 11 other brothers. He didn't go to any of them. He didn't go to any of his friends. The Quran tells us the first person he went to relay this dream to talk about this dream, to discuss this dream, was his father. What kind of relationship did Yaqub alayhi salatu salam had in order to encourage his son? Listen, Ya abati, right? Or Ya bunay in the next verse. Oh my beloved son. You ever need to speak to someone? Ever need to talk about anything? I'm here. So the type of nurturing environment that Yaqub alayhi salatu salam set for all of his children. It's not just Yusuf. It's for all 12 children. We later learn on that the other 10, they're not so good. Right? We ask Allah for tawfiq. Ameen ya Rab. So that child experienced something when he wasn't awake, when he was asleep. And he can run to his dad, to his father, and say, Dad, I love you. You're the most important person to me, and I want to tell you something. Let's talk about this dream. Even if it's the silliest dream in the world, the father's still going to listen. Number one, first lesson. Kids want you to listen, and they want you to care. We care, but a lot of the times we're not listening, and they're directly linked. All of the kids are looking at their fathers. This guy's looking at his dad. With tawfiq, inshallah. Right? Kids and parents, they're really different. I think that's something we have to understand, right? When you were probably young and you like cars? Okay, cool. So, when you were young, maybe you lost the toy tire off your car. And it was the end of the world for you. Or maybe you lost like a piece of a Lego puzzle or something. It was the end of the world for you, right? For the father, it doesn't mean anything to him. I could just buy you a new car. I could buy you a new toy, right? But for that child, him missing that little piece means the world to him, right? So when you, for example, one of the examples I have written down here is when you ask that same child, what you learned in school today? What you learned in school today? He doesn't care about school. Most kids, I'm saying most kids, they don't care about school, right? But when a child is younger, he will take it upon himself to give you a good answer. Because when a child's young, and their psychology is still developing, I'm talking about younger kids now, the number one agenda of any young child, is to please their parent. So you can show him or her affection. I love you, right? So for that child, school doesn't mean anything. But it will be important to him because it's important to you, right? So even if your kids come to you and they have silly dreams to narrate, I know it doesn't mean anything to you. Oh, did you see what Muhammad did to me today in class? I know. It doesn't make a difference to you, to your day. It doesn't matter to you. It's not important to you. But the Quran is telling us that it must become important for you. We can argue. We don't know. We can say maybe Yaqub alayhi salatu salam, the dream didn't mean much to him until Yusuf told him, and it was a form of revelation, right? But the dream was important to Yaqub alayhi salatu salam. Why? Because the dream was important to his son. So everything and anything that's important for your child has to become important for you. And this is the first lesson that we are learning in the Quran. We're learning that, parenthood, you have to engage your children. And you have to be an active listener to make them feel like their voice matters. You cannot be busy doing other things when you're having a conversation with your child. And I'll give you the famous example I always give parents. When our kids are young, who picks their kids up from school or has picked up their kids from school, right? You'll notice that when the child was really, really young, they can't stop doing this. They are just talking day and night. If you don't capitalize on that, there will come a time in a few years, right? So now, when the child's young, child can't stop talking. And you're like, oh man, will this child ever shut up? In a couple of years, if you don't capitalize on that, the roles are going to be completely reversed. Now you're going to be picking that child up from middle school, high school. And who's talking now? The parents. Before, Mom, this is what I drew in school. Dad, this is what I did in school. You know, Aisha, she couldn't stop talking about me, this, that, and the third. If you don't capitalize in those early years, the roles will be completely reversed. And now when you pick up that high school teenager, it's you that's asking the questions. How was school? Silence. How was what you learned? Biology. What'd your friends say? I make any new friends? Because they notice the treatment from the earlier years. Like your kids notice everything, is what I'm trying to say. They notice everything. So be careful in the early years. And what's the litmus test? What is the litmus test for us parents to know that we are living up to the sunnah of Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam? And the answer to that is when your kids, without you having to tell them, they come to you when they have problems. They come to you when they have issues. They come to you before anyone else when they need to talk, when they need to communicate something. And we ask Allah to allow us to understand the responsibility of that. Ameen ya Rab. I have a funny little, maybe the Desis might understand. So people from Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, they have, in the old movies back in the days, they have like some scenes where the movie's in color, right? So it's not in black and white. And it's the kids with the mom. So the whole family except the father. And they're like dancing and they're having the time of their life. The second the father comes through the door, enters the door, the director actually changes from color to black and white. And the reason for that is they're trying to show that like fathers back in the day, you know, because dad, maybe he had a long day at work and he hasn't had anything to eat. And dad's really upset. So now all the fun ends, all the happiness ends the second the father enters into the house. And literally that director, the movie's in color, but the second the director, the father enters into the picture, it's black and white, right? So back in the day, you had that type of relationship where it's just a super strict relationship. You have to be the means of breaking that cycle. You and I have to be the means of breaking that cycle. If Yaqub alayhi salatu was a father, like I just explained to you, do you think that Yusuf would have went to him to narrate this dream? Absolutely not, absolutely not. Later we learned that the 11 stars were actually his siblings, and the sun and the moon were his parents. And some of the scholars say that when he was narrating the dream, so the son, Yusuf, was narrating the dream to Yaqub, may Allah be pleased with both of them, some of the scholars say he already knew what the dream meant. He wasn't asking for an interpretation of the dream. He's just simply telling his father. Our children have been given different gifts. Some children are intelligent. Some children are artistic. Some children can speak well, right? Some kids have high IQ. Some kids are really good at solving problems, right? But the way you find that out is by dialoguing with them, by speaking with them, right? And until and unless you become active listeners, right? Yaqub says, now the father is speaking. He says, Ya bunay, again, bunay, right? Oh, my beloved son, I love you. This is in English. I'm translating as best as I can. I love you. لا تقصص رؤياك على إخوتك فيكيدوا لك كيدا إن الشيطان للإنسان عدو مبين. And he says, first of all, he tells his son, I love you. He's verbalizing his love, right? A lot of parents have this mindset, I'm not going to tell my child that I love him. Because why? Because I'm providing a roof over their head. I'm giving them food. I put clothes on their backs. So it's obvious that I love them. It's not obvious. Remember what I said in the beginning. kids and parents are different. You're different than your child, and your child's different from you, right? You might think it's common sense. I'm buying him toys, food, chocolate. I'm paying for his education. You might think it's obvious, and you do love him, but you need to verbalize that because kids are different, especially younger kids, right? He says, after telling him, I love you, don't tell your brothers about this dream. Do not tell this dream to your brothers. Majority of the 10 brothers, we have 12, 10 of them were older than Yusuf. One was younger, Benjamin. We later learn on that the brothers were pretty evil, right? He tells Yusuf, sometimes family is toxic. Sometimes you might not, no one has that perfect family, first of all. No one has a family that doesn't have issues. Wife and husband are arguing. Siblings aren't arguing with one another. There's no, we aim for not a perfect family, but as close as a perfect family, but there will always be issues in the family. And this is being highlighted in the Quran, that you have abnormal families. He has one of the best fathers to ever exist. He's got sons that are downright bad, right? Uqtulu Yusuf, kill Yusuf. Literally, he has sons that are trying to kill the other son. That's like how more toxic can it get, right? And again, it's not that he favored Yusuf. No, he loved all of his sons, right? A lot of us, all of us, we're in the masjid today listening to this lecture, so all of us, we love our children. We invest in our children financially, emotionally, spiritually. We try our best to establish Islamic schools, hifz schools, right? So our kids can get the proper tarbiyah and Islamic education. They can memorize Quran, inshallah, right? And we do all of that, yet they still go in a different direction. They get addicted to drugs. They hang out with the wrong friends, right? And then you ask yourself, and then parents will come to the imam, to the local imam, Imam, we spent thousands of dollars investing in our child, and he's in the wrong path. What can I do? Is there a special dua that you can blow on my child and he'll just, become practicing again? My son doesn't pray. My daughter, she doesn't wear the hijab, so on and so forth. Right? This is not a new problem. This isn't just your problem. This is the problem going back thousands of years for Yaqub alayhi salatu salam. But would we dare say there was a deficiency in his parenting? Absolutely not. And there isn't a deficiency in our parenting for the ones who actually are sincere, right? And they try their best. But you're listening to the story. Yaqub did everything he possibly could, right? Two of the boys, they came out, mashallah, righteous. The other 10, not so righteous. Test, akhi. Test. Every single prophet. أَحَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. Every single prophet had family issues. Nuh, we're going to get to them. Nuh, Ibrahim, Lut. Every prophet that's in the Quran, right? And to answer your question, why? Because Allah even reminds the prophets, guidance is not in your hands. إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ. We think that because we gave birth to the child, you gave birth to your son, that you control his guidance. You think that Nuh alayhi salatu salam, despite being a prophet, his son was a disbeliever. Ibrahim alayhi salatu salam, despite being a prophet, the father of the prophets, his father was a disbeliever. It's Allah's way of telling you and I, you don't control guidance. It's in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We cannot control them, And it is up to them. We give them the tarbiyah. We do everything we can, but at the end of the day, it's up to them on what kind of person they choose to be and the decisions they make. Of course, dua is the number one thing. Prophet ﷺ, Muhammad ﷺ told his daughter Fatima, have your own taqwa. For verily on the day of judgment, I cannot come between you and Allah. And this is the most beloved soul to Allah, saying, I can't. The Prophet can intercede, yes, but as far as completely Fatima radiallahu anha being off the hook, no, right? And the reason why this happens is, right, is because when our kids are young, everything's under our control. What they eat, what they drink, who they hang out with, what time they sleep, what time they wake up, when they shower. So we have control in our hands, right? There's a certain sense of control. As that child is growing up, he's starting to eat whatever he wants, starting to hang out with the friends that he wants, watching the things he wants on the phone, right? So you're slowly starting to lose that control. I want to go to Rutgers. You want your child to go to Rutgers, stay in Jersey. I want to go to Berkeley in LA or wherever it is, California. You're losing that control. And some parents can't come to terms with that. They can't accept reality. So Yaqub alayhi salatu salam tells his son, be careful of your brothers, right? Just because someone's family, Quran is telling us, just because someone's family doesn't mean that they always want what's best for you. This is a sad reality. It's sad, but it's the truth. And we learn it from this story. They're brothers. They're half-brothers, but still, khalas, they're from different mothers, but still brothers, right? They still share the same father. And he's telling them there will be times where you can't trust family members. But he makes a really important point. إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ لِلْإِنسَانِ عَدُوٌّ مُبِينٌ. He says, the brothers aren't evil, but they fell prey to the whispers of shaitan, which is something we don't do. The brothers, they're evil, but it's not because they have bad hearts, it's because shaitan got to them, which is something we don't do nowadays. You have a toxic uncle, right? Well, we say to our kids, don't talk to him, he's bad, he's evil. We don't tell them, shaitan got the better of him, right? And this is something we're learning in the story. We don't cut them off completely from those toxic family members. We say keep a distance, a healthy distance, and say Assalamu alaikum and you know, small talk. But what we do, we cut them off for good. Because what happens at the end of the story? Did the brothers change? قَالَ لَا تَثْرِيبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْيَوْمِ يَغْفِرُ اللَّهَ لَكُمْ وَهُوَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. Right? They changed. And Yusuf alayhi salam eventually forgave them. But you don't hate them. Right? You don't hate those family members. You make dua for them. So Quran tells us that this type of behavior, it didn't come from the brothers, it came from the devil. So Quran is different. Is making a distinction between their hearts and the whispers of shaitan. So Yusuf alayhi salam saw a dream. His father advised him and says, Allah selected you. You're something special. You are something special. And you're going to do great things in the future. And you're going to have a really bright future. He's going to eventually become the agriculture minister of Egypt. That's a huge kursi, that's a huge position, right? What I'm trying to say here is, a young boy had a dream. And off that one small dream, his father gave an entire speech of how awesome you are. Like, you mean the world to me. You're going to grow up and do great things. You're special. He's complimenting his son. He's praising his son, right? What I'm trying to say here is, one of the greatest sunan of the Prophet, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and all the prophets is, you need to take the little things that your kids do and you need to validate them. You need to appreciate your kids. You need to appreciate their efforts. You need to celebrate your kids. You need to celebrate their efforts. Am I wrong or right? Even if it's something small. We just had one of my students from our kids' hifz class. He memorized Juz Amma. Now for a lot of parents, it's one chapter. Some parents will celebrate that. A lot of the other parents will say, one juz, man, come to me when you have the whole Quran, right? When the parent himself doesn't even know 15 surahs, forget half, 15 surahs, right? Child brings you honors, A's and B's. Beta, why didn't you bring all A's? He brings A's. Why didn't you get all A pluses? So you've now created this environment where nothing your child does is enough for you. Nothing he does, nothing she does is enough for you. To pat him on his back, mashallah, good job, man, and give him a hug, you've done well. For some of us, our children aren't enough, right? Their efforts and their achievements aren't enough, right? And Quran is telling us that we need to change that. We need to acknowledge our children and appreciate them and celebrate them, right? Because when you do this, like Yaqub did with his son, they will become successful. And then when they get married one day, they'll do the same thing with their kids, and their kids will be successful, and it'll be an ongoing cycle. So we can understand and agree that that confidence that Yusuf had was from his father. Yaqub built his son up instead of tearing him down. So now when he leaves, when he's wrongfully in prison and he gets out, he enters a room and there is elites there, professional politicians there. And he says, give me the position of the aziz, of the minister. That takes a great amount of confidence to do. Where did he get the confidence from? From his father. Imagine his father was tearing him down. That's a dumb dream. Right? Don't worry about it. You think he'd be the minister of Egypt? Of course not. But it's because he instilled confidence in his child from an early age. He had that confidence to walk into a room with people on paper were much more qualified than him, but the confidence to say, appoint me. We ask Allah for tawfiq. Ameen ya Rab. So, what I'm trying to say here is, you need to build your children up. Our children lack confidence. It's a huge issue that's plagued our Muslim communities. Our children are very inconfident. Why? All we do today is criticize. It's not just kids. We have become an ummah of criticism. I'm not talking about when someone makes a genuine mistake and you give nasiha, sincere nasiha. I'm talking about we are constantly searching for mistakes. You're too skinny. You're too fat. You're too short. Your eyes are weird. Why don't you have green eyes? Right? Constantly, your voice sounds weird, right? So we're constantly poking at insecurities, right? We see our nephew after 2 years in a family gathering. What is the first thing we say? Beta, you gain weight, right? You put on some weight in front of everyone. And you don't know if that's obviously an insecurity. Maybe that extra weight is the means of depression for that child, and you just publicly roasted her, right? And what you're doing is you are breeding instability in your kids. What I mean by that is when you're constantly criticizing them, constantly making fun of them, publicly, privately. When that same child becomes a father, you don't think he's going to do the same exact thing with his son, and that son with his son, and that son with his son. So you are breeding a whole generation that's constantly searching for faults. I'm an imam for 5 years. I have a lot of experience with this. Imam, you had a good khutbah, but MashaAllah, your tarawih was good, but Right? We have become communities that are hunting for faults, hunting for mistakes. And the reason why, most likely your parents did that with you. It's a cycle. Your parents constantly criticized you, constantly critiqued you. Nothing you did was enough for your parents. So now, subconsciously, you're doing that with your kids. But I say, no, that's wrong. You have to break the cycle. You have to be the change in the cycle. Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, his father Azar, was constructing idols, selling idols, worshipping idols. Did Ibrahim ever worship an idol? He stopped. The cycle stopped with Ibrahim. He broke the cycle by literally breaking the idols. You understand? So we want communities that see goodness in people, that see the beauty in you and all of us, right? Stop searching for fault. It's not from the Quran, it's not from the Sunnah of any of the prophets to actively hunt for mistakes. Again, I'm not talking about someone genuinely making a mistake. You sincerely, kindly correct them. I'm talking about hunting for mistakes. This is against the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So this little conversation, which probably lasted 10, 15 minutes, maybe even less, and because of that confidence that was instilled in this child, he saved millions of people years later. Because there was a famine and a drought that was coming. Yusuf ﷺ, because of that confidence given to him by his father, inherited by his father, he saved his people. And above all else, and we'll wrap the story of Yaqub and then go to Shuaib, the only positive time Yusuf had in his life was when he was an adult or a child. A child. Because afterwards, he was thrown into the well, sold into slavery, wrongfully accused, thrown into prison. His life's not looking good. So whatever parenting Yaqub alayhi salatu salam did in the early ages, it was so powerful that it kept him steadfast through all of these trials and tribulations. Imagine being thrown in a well by your own father, by your own brothers, and keeping your faith and being steadfast. Imagine being sold into slavery, then kept in and then being accused wrongfully. You still kept your faith. You're still steadfast. Then in prison for God knows how many years, right? And you're still steadfast. Because of that, those moments between him and his father. We ask Allah for tawfiq. Ameen ya Allah. So coming to Shuaib. So we're going to talk about, I'll give you a little backstory. This is in the verses where Allah speaks about Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. Before I begin, I want you to try and focus on the mannerisms of Musa. I know that the topic isn't Musa, but it's important to, talk about him. So, focus on his character. Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, before he became a prophet, before revelation came down, he accidentally killed a man in Egypt. So now he's fleeing away, and he comes across a place called Madian. And he sees there two young ladies, sisters, siblings. They have some animals. So he sees two women. They have some livestock with them, some animals, and they're trying to water their animals. But there's a bunch of strange men. They're kind of horsing around and they're uncomfortable. And there's a well and they're trying to get their animals to go to the well. So he goes to them. قَالَ مَا خَطْبُكُمَا? What's up? What do you need? Here, the Quran, just as a side note, the verse shows us that it's permissible to talk to the other gender with purpose and with haya. The most mentioned prophet of Allah goes to two ajnabi women and he talks to them. But there is decency, there's haya, there's principle, right? So keep this in mind. So no flirting, nothing, straight to the point. قَالَ مَا خَطْبُكُمَا. What do you girls need? We can't feed our animals. لا نسقي حتى يصدر الرعاء وأبونا شيخ كبير. We have a father, he's super old. So that's why we're out here with the animals. And we're trying to water our animals, but there's a lot of people here, so we can't do that. So he took the animals, Musa alayhi salam took the animals, and he fed them, and he got them water. Imagine how strong his character was, that you're literally entrusting a stranger. They don't know he's a prophet. He hasn't gotten revelation yet. His character was so on point that within 5 minutes, they're like, bro, take our animals and we trust you. Keep that in mind, right? Back then, it was a very gender role society. Women would not be going out and doing things that so-called, back then, was a man's job. So actually, Quran is telling us that sometimes people's background is different. وَأَبُونَا شَيْخٌ كَبِيرٌ. Their father was an old man. He didn't have any sons. So that's why the daughters were out there in the midst of ajnabi men, right? Non-mahram men. What's up, buddy? Feeding the animals, right? So Quran is reminding us of this. So despite Musa, right? Musa is homeless. He's starving. He's about to die of dehydration. Put that all to the side. He sees these two women in need. And before asking Allah, Ya Allah, give me some water. Ya Allah, give me some food, some shade. Before doing any of that, asking for himself, he's in need more than the woman. He says, no, let me go and help these women, right? He hasn't even received revelation yet he's being selfless, right? So the scholars say, coming to parenting, the scholars say that this was because of his mother, the mother of Musa alayhi salatu. We don't even know her name. It's because she instilled these qualities in Musa alayhi salatu when she was raising him in the castle of the Pharaoh, right? The importance of teaching your children nobility from a younger age, right? And remember, Musa alayhi salatu, when he was born, things weren't easy. He was thrown in a basket, thrown in the well. Baby boys are being slaughtered and murdered and so on and so forth, right? Things weren't easy. Teaching your kids to be selfless. The Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you want your problems to be relieved, then help others relieve the issues and the problems of your brothers and sisters. So he helps the two women, and he finds some shade, and he says, فَقَالَ رَبِّ إِنِّي لِمَا أَنزَلْتَ إِلَيَّ مِنْ خَيْرٍ فَقِيرٌ. What that means is, Ya Allah, I'm desperate. I'm super desperate. Whatever goodness you have for me, send it my way. I'm thankful. Faqir literally means that your back is broken because of stress, right? Because of stress. Nobility, when a person loses a job, like in COVID-19, right? A lot of us, we have, again, coming back to education, we're well educated, but during COVID, we had to resort to jobs like driving a taxi, driving Uber, right? Musa alayhi salatu salam is not being picky here. A lot of us, we choose the amount of respect we will give people, and a lot of that is connected to the profession that you might have. A lot of Muslims, we don't respect janitors. We don't respect people who clean bathrooms, right? The first thing we'll ask, what do you do? You're a doctor, you're an engineer, you're a lawyer? MashaAllah. Respect? Check. But brother, what do you do? I'm the janitor of a high school. Oh, I've got to stay away from that guy. I can't be seen talking to that guy, right? So we're learning through these ayat that nobility does not come from the amount of money you make, from your profession. Because here, he has no money, he has no profession, he's homeless, right? But Allah is honoring him with these verses, right? And that's something that we have to teach our kids. Respect, nobility. Musa was in a place in his life where he needed help himself the most. But despite that, he decided to help those two women, right? And this is something, but he was like, so he needs help, but he's still searching for others that need help. And the scholars say this is something that was instilled in him by his mother. May Allah bless our mothers, ameen ya Rab. So long story short, the sisters, they go back, they narrate the story to the father, who some of the scholars say was Shuaib. Some of them say it wasn't Shuaib, whatever opinion is correct. And they say, one of them says, قالت إحداهما يا أبتي. Same thing. How do we say ab? Or how do we say father? Ab. How do we say my father? Abi. Here, ya abati. Same thing. Father, I love you. There's this guy, hire him. He's qawiyul amin. He's strong and he's noble. So the father says, go back, invite him over. فَجَاءَتْهُ إِحْدَاهُمَا تَمْشِي عَلَى اسْتِحْيَاءٍ. One of the daughters goes back and she's walking with haya, with modesty. And she said, قالت إن أبي يدعوك ليجزيك أجر ما سقيت لنا. Our father has invited you to repay you for your help. The scholars say, when they were going back to the house, Musa told the sister, I will walk in front of you, you walk behind me. If I get lost, let me know my direction. Why? Because if she walks in front of him, maybe he might look at her. Again, nobility, right? He's protecting the dignity of a stranger. Something instilled in him by his mother. Again, teaching nobility at a younger age. Daughter goes back and she says, Father, hire him. Right? And the scholars say, Ya abati istajirhu inna khayra man istajarta al-qawiyul amin. It's funny. Scholars say that she was trying to tell her father that I like this boy. That's why the ta is being used. Ya abati. She's saying, Dad, he's qawi, he's amin, he's strong, he's noble, I like him. Right? Imagine if one of our daughters told their father, Dad, I like a boy in college, right? We'll be praying her janazah the next morning, to be honest. There is nothing wrong with a boy liking a girl liking a boy, but you have to approach it with humility, with modesty, with haya, right? So she's telling him, Dad, I like this guy, hire him, because she knows, and he understood the hidden meaning here too. He understood what his daughter's trying, because women, they have haya. She's not going to come out and say, Dad, I love this guy. She's being indirect, and he caught on that. He saw, the hidden meaning in her words. And he thought to himself, listen, if I hire him, he's going to have to spend a lot of time around my daughter. Might as well get him married to my daughter. So fathers need to understand this from their daughters, right? Now, the reason why I'm telling this story is, what kind of relationship did this father and daughter have for her to open up indirectly and say, Dad, I like this boy? Because that is something that's haram in our communities, in our families. For a daughter to come to her father and say, Dad, I like this guy. For a son, maybe it's a little bit easier for the guys, but Mom, I like this girl. We completely shut them down, but the Quran is telling us this is the type of relationship they had. That a daughter can go to her father and say, Dad, I like this boy, not because he's I'm drooling over his look. No, because he's qawi, he's strong. Not only physically strong, but strong in iman. And he's ameen. He's trustworthy. He's noble. He's modest. He gets what she's trying to do. And the father accepts that. قال إني أريد أن أنكحك إحدى بنتي. Right? I want you to marry my daughter. I want you to marry my daughter. One of the last points, and then we'll end off, inshallah. The father accepted this rishta, this proposal, despite Musa being homeless, poor, the clothes on his back are ripped, no money, nothing. His marriage profile was not good. But why did the father accept the proposal? Because of his character, because of his religion. The Prophet ﷺ told us that you can marry a boy or a girl for a couple of things. Number one, religion. Number two, beauty. Number three, wealth. Number four, family background, family lineage. If you're to choose one, choose deen. And Shuaib chose faith. Although everything else was missing. He wasn't wealthy. He doesn't come from a good family. Like his family, it's all over the place kind of, right? And the only thing that he had was deen. 99% of us, if that rishta, that proposal came to us today, 99% of us would reject it. And that's just pure fact. May Allah guide us. Ameen ya Rab. And I'll leave you off with this last reminder, inshallah, to teach. You know, before we teach our children, we need to be an example. So first, you need to apply these advices before you teach your children, because you need to lead by example, not just lead by do this. That's easy to do. I can do it. You can. Anyone can do that. We need to become people of service, community service, where we put others before ourselves. You guys, Falah, if you guys want to succeed as a community, you need to put others before yourself. That's how we will succeed as, not only as a community, but as an ummah, and the ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Before this event occurred with the two women, Prophet Musa alayhi salatu didn't have a thing to his name. Because of one sincere charity, because of one sincere act of selflessness, Allah accepted it, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with a home. Allah blessed him with the best treasure that Allah can give to a man, which is a righteous wife, a God-fearing wife. Allah gave him family. Allah gave him shelter. And to wrap things up, Allah gave him employment for 10 years. 10 years. Shuaib gave him a 10-year contract. Now you have a home, you have a wife who fears God, you have money coming in, and you have a beautiful family. The scholars say all of those blessings stemmed from that one act of community service that Musa alayhi salatu salam did, and that was taught to him by who? By his mother. We ask Allah for tawfiq, we ask Allah for paradise, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to understand the true meaning of parenthood. It's not just bossing your children around, but it's understanding a child, his needs, understanding his needs, listening to his or her needs, and then going about with your parenting techniques that we learn from Yaqub and Shuaib. Allahumma rabbana atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhab an-nar. Allahumma inna nas'aluka jannat al-firdaus wa na'udhu bika min an-nar. Allahumma shfi mardana wa mardal muslimin warham mawtana wa mawtal muslimin. May Allah free Palestine. May Allah protect those beautiful children. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us strength over the oppressors, even in Lebanon. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relieve the suffering of the Muslims around the globe. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.